You're doing everything you were told to do. You went to school, you got the job, you earn a solid income. And yet, it still feels tight. If that sounds familiar, hit like, share, and subscribe to Mano Invest, because today we're breaking down why the math feels broken and how to flip it in your favor. This isn't a motivation speech. This is a numbers conversation. And once you see the numbers clearly, the pressure starts to disappear. Why a good salary doesn't feel good. You make good money, so why does it still feel tight? Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. Let's start with a number people are usually proud of: $84,000 a year. On paper, that's solid, around the middle of American incomes. It sounds like it should buy comfort, breathing room, maybe even progress. But for a lot of people earning this, life feels stuck on a treadmill. Paycheck comes in, bills rush out. Savings feel optional. Investing feels like something other people do. And here's the key part. This isn't because you're irresponsible. It's because the lifestyle that used to fit this income quietly broke. Housing, insurance, food, transportation, subscriptions, each one grew faster than paychecks, but slowly enough that no single bill feels outrageous. Individually, they look normal. Together, they drain momentum. So even a good salary starts acting like a fragile one. Any surprise pushes you back. Any goal feels delayed. The problem isn't effort. It's the system your money is flowing into. And once you actually follow where the dollars go, you start to see why the math feels off, even when the income looks right. What you actually take home. You make $84,000 a year. Sounds solid until this part hits. Because that $84,000 never actually shows up in your bank account. Before you touch it, money gets pulled for federal taxes, payroll taxes, state taxes, and maybe a basic retirement contribution. None of that is optional. It happens quietly, every paycheck. When the dust settles, the number that actually runs your life isn't $84,000. It's closer to $5,000 a month. Not because you messed up, not because you're bad with money. That's just how the system works. This is the moment most budgets fall apart because people plan their lives around the big salary number, not the real one they can spend. But here's the upside. Once you stop budgeting fantasy money and start using the real monthly number, everything changes. Decisions get clearer. Trade-offs make sense. Stress drops. Now that we know what you actually take home, the real question becomes, what should that $5,000 be doing for you? And that's where things get interesting. The cost of a normal life. Here's a question most people never stop to ask. What does a normal life actually cost right now? Because when you run the numbers, the answer is unsettling. Start with housing. For many households, it eats up close to half of monthly income, before food, before cars, before anything else. Now layer on what's considered standard: 2 financed cars, groceries, utilities, insurance, student loans, childcare. Nothing fancy, nothing reckless, and yet for a lot of people, the math still breaks. Not because they're overspending, but because ordinary expenses now require extraordinary income. Here's the uncomfortable pattern no one likes to say out loud. The median lifestyle quietly demands above median money to maintain. That gap, the space between what life costs and what most people earn, is where financial stress lives. Not in bad decisions, in silent math. But there's a flip side most people miss. Once you can see the gap, you're no longer trapped by it. You can question defaults, redesign priorities, choose differently. And that raises a much bigger question most people never explore. Which parts of normal are actually optional? The real game is the gap. Most people think making more money is the goal. It's not. The real game is something almost no one tracks. Financial freedom doesn't come from a bigger paycheck alone. plenty of high earners still feel broke. The difference is the gap, the space between what comes in and what goes out. That gap is where options live. It's where stress drops, choices expand, and time starts working for you instead of against you. People who are quietly winning with money don't obsess over looking rich. They obsess over protecting the gap. They buy cars that don't eat their future. They upgrade lifestyles slower than income. They treat fixed expenses like permanent decisions, not temporary fun. Same salary, same economy, very different outcomes. Here's the trap most people fall into. Every raise gets absorbed. Every win gets upgraded. The gap stays thin and life stays tight. But when you widen the gap, something weird happens. Emergencies stop feeling like disasters. Opportunities stop feeling risky. And money stops controlling every decision. This isn't about deprivation, it's about direction. In the next part, I'll show you the fastest way people accidentally shrink their gap without realizing it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Housing without the handcuffs. The fastest way to trap your money isn't bad investing, it's an expensive place to sleep. Here's a truth most people learn too late. The biggest financial lever in your life is where and how you live. Banks will happily approve you for the maximum mortgage, but financially intentional people don't ask, how much can I borrow? They ask, how flexible does this keep my life? That shift changes everything. Instead of stretching to the limit, they rent or buy below what they can technically afford. Not because they're cheap, because flexibility is expensive and they want to own it. Some choose cities where housing doesn't eat half their income. Others use remote work to earn big city pay while living on small city costs. Same paycheck, completely different breathing room. And when housing stops owning your paycheck, something strange happens. Saving gets easier. Risk feels safer. Opportunities stop feeling scary. You're not working just to maintain your address anymore. You're buying options. Most people think freedom comes from earning more, but often it comes from needing less. And here's the question to sit with. If your housing cost dropped by just 20%, what would suddenly become possible? Cars that build wealth instead of eating it. Cars are one of the fastest ways to drain your future without noticing. Here's the pattern. You buy new, payments stretch for years, insurance stays high, and the car quietly eats cash long after the excitement is gone. Now flip the script. Reliable, older cars do something powerful that shiny ones don't. They give you margin. Lower or no payments, cheaper insurance, less stress if life changes. That margin isn't boring, it's leverage. Because every dollar you don't send to a lender can be invested instead. And over time, that difference compounds harder than any car ever could. Status feels good for a moment, but it doesn't grow, it doesn't multiply, and it definitely doesn't pay you back. Quiet cars don't impress strangers, they impress your future self. And once you see how much money margin can build, it becomes really hard to unsee what most people are trading away. Think about the car you're driving right now. Is it costing you or compounding for you? Reclaiming flexibility with family costs. What if your biggest family expense isn't actually fixed, it just pretends to be? Childcare costs feel unavoidable, heavy, locked in. And for a lot of families, they're real pressure, not a budgeting mistake. But here's the quiet shift that's happening. Some families aren't paying less because they earn more. They're paying less because they got intentional. Not perfect, not easy, intentional. They're using staggered or flexible work schedules, so fewer paid hours are needed. They're sharing care with trusted family or other parents. They're choosing alternative providers instead of default options. Some are even negotiating with employers, not for salary, but for flexibility. None of these are magic fixes. Each one alone feels small. But here's the part people miss. Small, intentional choices stack. and stacked choices create flexibility. Flexibility is what turns a tight month into a survivable one. It's what gives families breathing room when life shifts. So the question isn't, can we eliminate this cost? It's, where can we loosen it even a little? Because once you reclaim flexibility in one place, you start seeing where else it might be hiding. When the math flips. What if your biggest money upgrade isn't earning more, but finally breathing? Here's the moment most people never reach. It's when the math flips. When your housing, transportation, and fixed bills shrink enough, something strange happens. You stop bracing for impact. Instead of falling behind every month, you have extra. Instead of praying nothing breaks, you're ready when it does. Instead of saying, I'll invest someday, you actually start. Not because you suddenly became disciplined.
Not because you found a secret strategy, but because your money finally has space. This is the difference most advice skips. Budgeting feels painful when every dollar already has a job. But once your core costs drop below a certain line, money stops yelling at you and starts listening. That's when stress fades. That's when choices appear. That's when investing stops feeling risky and starts feeling obvious. And here's the part to think about. If your money feels tight right now, is it really your habits, or is the math still upside down? Because once the math flips, everything else follows. The shift most people never make. Most people accidentally trap themselves trying to look successful, and they don't realize it until it's too late. Here's the shift almost nobody makes. The default plan goes like this: buy the nicer car, upgrade the lifestyle, say yes to the payment, and tell yourself, I'll build freedom later. But later gets expensive. The people who actually win flip the order. They don't chase the image first, they chase flexibility. They keep fixed costs low so their money can breathe. They protect their margins so one bad month doesn't wreck them. They invest the difference instead of spending it to impress people who aren't paying their bills. From the outside, it can look like they're moving slower. Inside, they're buying options. Options to change jobs, options to say no, options to walk away when something stops making sense. That's the real divide. One group optimizes for appearance, the other optimizes for control. And here's the uncomfortable part. Freedom usually looks boring right before it starts working. Most people never make this shift, not because it's complicated, but because it doesn't feel like progress at first. And that raises a question worth sitting with. Which choices in your life are buying flexibility, and which ones are quietly selling it? Finally, the system didn't break you. You just outgrew its assumptions. Once you understand the math, you're no longer trapped by it. You can spend less without living less, build the gap intentionally, turn ordinary income into extraordinary freedom. That's what we do here on Mano Invest. If this helped you see money differently, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Build the gap, create options, win.